Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today, I've got a really quick one. There has been a new spoiler posted on Reddit of one of the new items that's going to come in the Delirium League, and this is a medium cluster jewel. Cluster jewels are a bit of a complex new mechanic where you can get a small, medium, or large cluster of jewels. So one jewel that then adds a new cluster onto your passive tree. They can only be used in the outermost ring of the passive tree in jewel sockets there. And when you socket one, it adds a new section onto the tree, which for some cases can even have new jewel sockets in it. And people are calling them clusterfucks, where you get a whole bunch of clusters all linked to each other. Anyways, this one is really interesting, but may not look it. And it's because of this node's self-fulfilling prophecy. 1% to critical strike chance of Herald skills. This doesn't sound like much, but this is base crit. And what that means is that Herald skills have a base critical strike of 0. You need to get that above 0 in order for Herald skills to have any ability to critically strike at all. Once you do this, then you can scale it via all other methods of scaling critical strikes. So this 1%, then if you have 7 power charges, suddenly goes from, you get 280% increased critical strike from those power charges, so then it becomes 3.8%. The hardest part of getting critical strike on Heralds is getting that first base critical strike. Most people feel that if you want to build a what's called an Autobomber build, which is one that uses Heralds to trigger the same Herald, so you'll have Herald of Ice mostly. Herald of Ice doesn't easily freeze on its own, but when it's able to freeze, and critical strikes with cold damage always freeze, then that can allow one Herald of Ice explosion to then proc other Herald of Ice explosions, hence the term self-fulfilling prophecy. Anyway, this is looking really, really, really strong because currently people feel really pressured to go Assassin and or to use specific combinations of gems in order to make Heralds capable of triggering themselves. This is a new way of doing that. Because Assassins are quite fragile, this will allow you to have a much tankier Autobomber build. So for instance, although I'm not certain that this will definitely work well, it's now certainly possible to consider an Elementalist as an Autobomber, which I think was a bit of a marginal choice before, or a Guardian at the much more tanky end. You go a Guardian or even an Inquisitor. All of these provide options for a lot more damage, while still keeping that fundamentally essential base critical strike available, so that you can then propagate Herald of Ice from one Herald to another, from one Herald of Ice explosion to another. So this looks really exciting. I definitely want to play around with this. As is always the case with newly added items, do need to be conscious that some of these might be very hard to acquire, but given that this is on a magic item, I'm a bit more confident that it's going to be reasonable to pick up. Anyways, if you've got any comments or questions, fire away. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it there. Very excited to see this one in practice.